Welcome, everybody, to the Safety Moment podcast. My guest today is none other than Mr. Todd Scott, the Executive Director of the Canadian Common Ground Alliance. Todd joined us a little while ago to talk about where the CCGA was headed, and he is another 6 months at least in now in his tenure as the Executive Director, and there's always lots happening, and there's more happening now with the CCGA. So we want to touch in again with Todd and really sort of take off from where we left off last time. So Todd, welcome back to the Safety Moment podcast. You're making me look about as young as I could possibly look.
Well,
That says something about us, doesn't it?
well, we are contemporary.
Yeah.
No, Mike, I'm really glad to be back. It's always a joy to be here, and I really enjoy you and I get along quite well. So
We share
had
some
many,
good
many
history.
we
Yeah.
have, and we certainly as I say, paddled some boats, I guess, or
Yeah.
went over some water.
Oh, yeah.
It's really good to be here, and I'm excited to talk about the CCGA.
Well, you had a great event in Halifax, and it seems like just a couple of weeks ago, but it's months ago now.
Yeah,
And that
absolutely.
was the first time I think the CCGA has held an event in Atlantic Canada.
was.
Some strategic meetings in the past going back, but this was the first event in Atlantic Canada, and great success that we had. The day we got there, I mean, the day I got there, the weather was phenomenal. It didn't quite
Yeah,
last,
absolutely.
but
No.
but that was no, it was a great event. So I want to talk a little bit about that. I mean, leading up to that, I know planning those things is not easy, not easy, and doing it, hosting it in a place you've never hosted it before. There's always some hesitation. It's a little bit of nervous. Are we going to get the numbers we hope to get? And so, but I think you got there. I mean, it was a great event.
Yeah, no, it was fantastic. And as you know, as I live out in Atlantic Canada, and was one of the start at the CGA. Anyway, it was very. I was always hesitant because I was wondering if I would get the draw that I needed to make it worthwhile. And luckily, and not luckily, but when I was away and Scott Boudreau took over, he really he said, let's take a chance, and off he went. And you know what? It was him and his team did a fantastic job. It was a really screaming success, to be honest with you. We had like a great uptake in numbers. We were sort of on par with what we've had for the last 4 or 5 years. Well, since coming out of COVID.
Yeah, which was a
Yeah,
challenge.
we've had the same numbers that we've had, 135 delegates there, 36 speakers, and 27. We had actually 30 exhibitors. 3 of them had to cancel the last minute or whatever, couldn't make it. So
Which
we ended
is
with
common,
27.
unfortunately.
We had really good representation from across the country. Certainly Alberta led the charge, and that's fairly normal with the CCGA in terms of just because of the concentration of oil and gas and a few things. And that's the groups that are really, are built for this. It's not our full target, but they certainly help us along. So
for sure.
Alberta was first in line. Second line, of course, Ontario had great representation from Ontario. And then, I was very proud to say that we had 41 delegates from Atlantic Canada.
Yeah.
27 from Nova Scotia itself. And then we had good representation from New Brunswick, and we had a few from PEI as well. Absolutely.
I mean, it's always an opportunity. These events are always an opportunity to rekindle, relationships, acquaintances.
Oh, absolutely.
And for people to get together, and for a number of years we couldn't, right?
Yeah. Well, what's happened subsequent to that, Scott has seen an uptick in his interest in we had our board meeting in about maybe 6 weeks ago, and we had good participation. There's a lot of interest. One of the key sponsors, Dexter Construction from out here, is a big civil construction. They do some mining. They do they're into everything really.
Right.
They are certainly I think his Dexter's president get up and a younger guy gave a really nice personal story about his experience with locating and having damages and all that when he was out in the field as a project manager. So it really worked out well. We have 18 international people come as well. We had 14 from the U.S., 1 from Malaysia, and 1 from the Netherlands, actually.
Which is, having Atlantic Canada, for some people across the pond, it's a little easier, right?
It makes it easier, absolutely.
That's right. It's not like coming to, middle of Canada or even Alberta, which is it's a great draw, but it's a little bit further. It's harder to get to. So
Absolutely.
no, it was good.
Yeah.
And one of the key things we've been trying to do with the CCGA is to have that engagement at the municipal level, at the local level. And there was some of that too. So it's really good to hear that Scott and the Atlantic Canada CGA has seen some benefit following the event.
Scott and I've spoken about that, and he was really pleased with how it went. It was just a fantastic location, and the waterfront in Halifax is, I can't say enough about it.
Oh, it's
We had a
wonderful.
bit of rain, the weather turned on us a bit,
Yep.
but walking down and all the restaurants are there. It's a very big tourist area as well.
Well, I heard a lot of
was,
people
uh,
saying, I'm coming back in the summertime.
absolutely.
I want a vacation here.
Well, that's the Maritimes. I can
for
take you
sure.
to dozens of places like that.
Yeah.
We got lots of coast.
Oh, we've got lots of coast. No, I love it. It was a great opportunity. And for, even for myself, I spent a lot of time there years ago and
Yeah.
during pipeline construction of the Maritimes as a Northeast
Oh,
pipe.
yeah.
Fell in love with it, and it was an opportunity for me to go back. And I don't have a lot of those trips left. It's fun. One of the, beyond that, we had great speakers, excellent event, a great draw.
Yeah,
It's an opportunity as well for the committees to connect in person. The
Yes.
Best Practices Committee, Education Awareness, all the committees, and even the Training and Standards Committee from Alberta, under Utility Safety Partners. Their event, the Speakeasy, was I know they were worried,
fantastic.
like, how are we going to have anybody come? And there's
Oh, my
probably
God.
200 people jammed into that room, and
It's a big endeavor. It's one of our key deliverables for the CCGA every year. And it's the only real conference to be speak of that brings all the damage prevention professionals, all the stakeholders together, and not just from one industry, but across the gamut.
and not just
right?
from one
So-
province.
So, and it's a great opportunity for learning. We need them, and honestly spreading the word. And I trust that the friendships or the contacts that are made at those things seem to carry on. 'Cause you see the same guys year after year after year. So it is really worthwhile, and it's one of the things that we really want to expand. Kind of our goal moving forward with that is to try to broaden the scope of it a little bit in terms of, can we draw more field folks in, more,
Yeah, it's always
more
been the
that,
challenge.
and how do we do that and make it a worthwhile event for them? Do we add some training opportunities? So these things to actually put on the DPS it's a full year. Like we're starting for Calgary now.
Yeah.
We actually already kicked off that. It's actually going out for call for papers here in a couple of weeks, and then we'll be starting selling vendor space and all that. And then it's putting that program together and making sure. And we take a lot of feedback during the event. We've amalgamated that together, making sure that we're keeping that in mind as we move it forward. So we're in a continuous improvement model all the time. So every time we try, we have to reevaluate where we're going, how we're getting there, and what's the best thing, and how we serve our stakeholders. That's the
And you mentioned
biggest thing.
during COVID, there was that gap, right? I mean, it was very challenging to keep the wheels going.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
you almost had to rebuild after that. There was
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think
And I think there's a real people seem to like it, and it's actually a good spot for our regulators to actually be involved with the utility owners, but actually, and also the contractors and whoever else, the field staff, to hear both sides of that story, because really, our world is is right from the notification center right to the time the shovel hit, they shovel and they're working in the field. So
one of my best takeaways from the CCGA in Halifax, and you and I have been around this for a long
Yeah.
time. I was there from the very beginning, and you were there shortly thereafter.
yeah.
And one of my best takeaways was at the end, I had the opportunity and the honor of saying, hey, we're coming to Calgary and inviting
Yeah.
people to Calgary. And I asked the question, people put up your hand. It was the first time you've been here. And a lot of hands went up. And what that tells me is that the baton is being passed, right?
Yeah.
And even having Tanya Kolenko, she's up there and she's doing a great job promoting the event and being that key person resource on the Education Awareness Committee. That baton is being passed to the younger generation. And I feel really good about that because it's in good hands, right? It's in good hands. The challenge continues, the quest continues. And, we brought it so far, and now it's for somebody else. Okay, now it's your turn. The journey is for
Well,
you to take.
Yeah, when you did that, and we spoke about it.
I'm going to dye my hair for the next one.
Yeah,
That would be funny. You and I
it's
show up completely dark. Yeah, that'd be funny as hell.
There feels like it's a bit of a turnover happening, and I'm really excited about that, to be honest with you.
Oh, me too, because young people, new ideas, fresh ideas,
yeah.
right? And and that was us not long ago. But all of a sudden, it's like I'm not that I'm fresh out of ideas, but I don't know if I have as many good ones.
What, Mike? When you mentioned you had asked me to come back on, and I was thinking about my tenure, and when I first started this with Atlantic. And we got together and we were doing the 811 thing, and then I was trying to get Atlantic going, and we were both working full time. I was working full time for Enbridge out here. So It was busy times, but man, it was exciting. And
It
I
was.
felt like we were doing something, and all that. And then, so I was always very, very optimistic about it. I was, as you know, worked with Liberty Utilities. And then I was actually basically working in the States for a couple of years. I was living in Canada and sort of traveling down all the time and with them. And you know what? When I came back to this role as the executive director, I feel that same optimism.
That's
I
good.
really do. I think it's going to. We're at another building block. We have to stabilize what we have. We've got a lot of work to do, as we did. We went through the strategic planning last year, and now we're starting to implement some of that. Our raison d'être. Why are we here? The CCGA is really exists to bring the damage prevention community together, to bring that together, to continue to support, not losing the influence of the regionals at the regional level, but trying to take whatever they're developing and whenever we can and be that national voice. And I do feel that is, we're working on stuff. Our strategic plan basically consists of, our strategic plan basically has 4 basic pillars in it. As we move forward, we're looking at strengthening governance. We're trying to prepare. We had a great governance model that we worked on many years ago. We're looking at sort of maturing that a little bit, putting a little bit more meat on the bone in terms of policy, procedure, those types of things, so that when we do go, if there are opportunities to get involved in some national campaigns and looking towards, if we have to do some lobbying or we have to handle some money, some of that money, we have all the policies, procedures, and the structure in place that'll allow us to do that. Right.
Yep.
I apologize for that.
Time of the year, man.
We're strengthening our governance stability and increasing stability, looking at our funding model, making sure that we are in a place we can get there. Succession planning, we talked about. It's happening within our group as well.
Well, that's one of the things I wanted to touch on, even on our board. I mean, we have some new people that are joining the board. That things are changing.
You can feel the energy too. They are coming with some energy and some great ideas and different experiences to show us, to challenge us old guys that have been here for a little bit.
And the event itself, going back to the event itself, it's an opportunity to build some momentum. Because. During the year, we have our regular jobs, and we're slogging through whatever it might be, and individually, and then you come to an event like that, and it's like, you know what, we're all doing the same thing, and we're working hard, but this is a bit of a gratification that we have made progress. It's a momentum builder, so I'm glad to hear that, and I'm anxious for this to come to Calgary, and
I'm really looking forward to it.
It's the first time it's been in Calgary itself.
I'm excited about being in Calgary, and I do think. This one coming up, there's a lot of stuff going on I'm really hoping we can get some of the municipalities involved.
Yeah.
There's some big, you guys, it wasn't, I don't know if it was necessarily damages, but a big renewal work in Calgary going on with your water pipe.
In fact, if we could, I would love to be able to have somebody come in from the City of Calgary to talk about that. The City of Calgary is on my board of directors. And my government relations contractor right now, Concentric Public Affairs, they are working to get me a meeting with Jeremy Farkas, who's our new mayor. And Mr. Farkas is very progressive, and he brings a lot of, again, renewal and momentum, I think. He wasn't in office very long. Breach happened on the water line. So I'm hoping that we can sort of bring these things together and have somebody there from the City of Calgary talk about that. It wasn't a damage caused by third-party damage, but this was akin to stress corrosion cracking, if you will, on a transmission pipeline. The fact is that this is what can happen if we don't pay attention. The implications, not just in that one area of where the breach occurred, but across the entire city has been an issue. So that's something I'm hoping we can do. Now, going back to the conference in Halifax, there was the committees meet, and one of the elements was damage information reporting tool, the DIRT data.
Yes.
And it's always a challenge having members or contributors, anybody contribute to the DIRT report. Getting those voluntary reports of damage. I know here in Alberta we had a significant drop in damage reported because one entity didn't report. And that's always a challenge, and that's so. The DIRT data is based only. We have to look at it in kind of a very tight window, because it's only those that are voluntarily reporting. Has there been any talk about how we can improve that? It comes down to the province itself. We need to get more submitters. What do you think is a golden
Well, the
bullet there, a
the
silver
I
bullet?
yeah, well, it's a bit of an education piece, and I do think that, I mean, the actual dirt report is, it's a great document. It's a tremendous amount of work, and it's a unicorn in Canada in terms of trying to get all of that data from all those different infrastructure types and owners into one document.
Yeah.
And it is like as you mentioned, it's voluntary, so it's anonymous. So we're not trying. That's by design, but it is a bit of Achilles heel sometimes because. As you said, our numbers dropped significantly in 24 across the company, and when you go to try to figure out, okay, what happened to that because of an anonymity and all that, it's very difficult. We need to continue, and I really do need to start to educate more, probably a little bit more of a coordinated approach hearing across everywhere, and try to make sure that we're producing stuff in that report that our stakeholders want that'll find useful. And providing it in a manner which they can use easily, access easily, compare themselves to others, dashboarding, all those types of things. So we are working at that. I'm actually just from a specific collection. So we are in already collected data. All the data is in except for one region, which we'll get here. And then we'll start the analysis. Just in terms of all I can tell you, it's not been washed yet. But all I can say is we're up a little bit, marginally, within 2 or 3, maybe 400 or 500 from last year. But I would suggest we need to really we have to start looking at how can we look at who submitted in the past without, somehow, and then say, okay, if you've submitted in the past, why did you stop, and what do we need to do to get you to jump back in? And then we've got to sort of keep moving that forward. And it's about making sure that there's value in what they're doing, because and I think. I look at one sector that doesn't report a lot, which has a lot of infrastructure in the ground, is hit a lot, is municipal. But the municipal folks, we need to figure out a way to get more involved with the Federation of Municipalities or whoever, and get them into our field, into our fold, and contributing and seeing what the value is. You drive those best practices, you drive those educational moments with data. And
Yes.
society today is driven by database decisions. But we really need to have the data to start with so that we can start. So I don't have a silver bullet, Mike. I think it's just going to be hard work.
I don't have it either. I found it yet.
And I'm trying, but I do think it's going to take a common count. I think maybe a more national campaign.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that I'm really looking forward to, as one of our other strategic initiatives is to increase our engagement and value add our organization with a stronger message at the national level.
We talk about dirt, obviously, in the submitters, and we've been fortunate enough to have a number of submitters here in Alberta, a high number. Now it's been scrubbed, and we got rid of those entities that weren't submitting, and we're still, a number of parties that do submit damages. And again, anonymously, it really helps. And one of the things I would like to see expand with our dirt reporting is how we differ from the CGA in the US in terms of dirt data. I would like to see us be able to manipulate the reporting tool. I think we also need to look at, the way locates are happening today has changed in the last number of years. In Ontario, Quebec has a similar program now where they're allowing contractors to locate, and it's reducing damages. Here in Alberta, we have the alternate locate provider program, which, if I look at the comparative data to dirt and the number of damages per locate request or per notification, and then I look at the same value for ALP, and it's like a 99% reduction in damages compared to the conventional methods. And when we have these things and we look at that through the lens of a dirt report, or we incorporate that into a dirt report, say, okay, well, this is clearly a better way of doing things. Now let's initiate a best practice for that. And over time, as you know, a best practice will influence standards, will influence legislation. Absolutely, and that's why, we want to talk about best practices for a moment. I know it's a challenge because it's a consensus document. I think that's holding us back. I think we have to look at that as a board and say, is that really the best way to go? And ask ourselves, or do we go with a majority vote or something like that?
Well, it is a challenge. And I think what happens, and having sat in on this years ago and then starting to reintroduce myself to it now, the challenge, and this is again one of our key deliverables, right?
It's one of the
And
three pillars.
yeah, one of the three pillars, exactly. And so I'm with you in the sense that we have to maybe sort of rethink the approach. We have committees and a lot of most of the larger or more established CGAs like yourself in Alberta and Ontario, Quebec. They have their own. They have a best practices sort of group that works
Yes.
within the region. And one thing that's a frustration for those folks is that they do stuff and then they send it up to the national committee and it spins for a while. So one of the initiatives I have is with our chairs of the committee, and I'm working with them now to try to get that process speeded up. I said when I sat in on Ontario, it's not that long ago, and I just said, look, guys, it's a best practice.
Yeah.
If you're not doing it today, doesn't mean it's not the right answer. It just means that you're not doing it today.
That's right. And recognizing
And
a
we
best
have to-
practice doesn't mean you have to do it.
You like to try to move yourself towards it, but it's just one of those. It's just a natural sort of.
It's a hurdle.
I've seen it in other places too, where I've been, and it really does sit. Well, we don't. We shouldn't write it down. Well, no, it's a best practice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that type of a thing. And I do think getting the process together. One thing I worry about, and I have to make sure that the regional best practice committee, they have the documents they produce, but they can't be in conflict with the national one. That's my only concern. I have no trouble if somebody has, you guys want to do work and all that, but I just got to make sure that it's congruent.
We're
with
holding
what we
up
have.
the national.
Ours probably may or may not be a little bit more general, just because of the consensus approach that we're using now.
Yeah.
And we can,
Yeah.
But I agree, and I don't disagree with you. And going back to the data too, Mike, I agree. We do have to get that there. We have to be sure, though, that when we put something, we have data,
Yep.
but we have to really examine that data to make sure what is driving that change. It could be, no question, what you've done, but there's other factors there. Are you getting the same reporting? Are we getting, you know what I mean, like that type of stuff?
What would the outcome
yeah.
be, right?
Please. So,
Yeah.
and I would love to have, and as long as we can get to somewhere where we statistically, a valid conclusion that we can back up, and somebody can't shoot holes in it all over the place, and we haven't done that. But it's just one of those things that, we can't make the data fit the need. We need the need to fit the data.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. I talked to my colleagues who are on part of the best practice committee here in Alberta, and yeah, there's frustration. I've been frustrated with it, the process. I've submitted TRs that seem so logical, and they come back and say, no, we're not doing that. So how can you ignore the data? I mean, the data is king.
I
We say it
know.
all the time. Right? If the
Absolutely.
data is king, then how can we say no?
And I'm going to, and quite frankly, that's one of my things that I've engaged with those committees and attending a lot of the meetings. I mean, I certainly can't be the driving force on all of them, but I am in the room, and when I see these types of, I'm there more to shift the attitude or the frame of mind.
Yep.
Is where I see my role in that, is to
Yep.
make sure that we enter that discussion with an open mind, move ourselves from regional to the national, and then think about it from that perspective. So
And you're carrying that message from the board, right? So let's talk about the board for a minute. I briefly referenced it a few moments ago, but we're seeing a turnover there too. Saskatchewan, Jonathan Sherman is fairly new. He's a little over a year now, I think, in the role, and again brings that new energy, new blood. He lives and breathes safety, so it's a great fit. And they had a couple of years ago now, I guess, that the Saskatchewan Common Ground Alliance absorbed Sask First Call, and so they are one entity now. Quebec did it many years ago now. I mean, it's got to be getting close to 10 years, if not, I guess close to 10 years. We did it here in Alberta 5-6 years ago. And now we're seeing a transition potentially in British Columbia where they are looking for a new executive director and how they go about that.
I know they're in the market now. They've advertised, and I think they are getting some. Last I heard that they had some applications and some reasonable people, but I don't know if they've gone through the interview process at this point.
But it's a big change. I mean, Dave Baspali, he was there for many years,
absolutely.
17 years, I think, in that role.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he saw the CCGA, the birth of the CCGA. He went through the legislation objective. He went through the challenges we've had financially. He went through the whole COVID thing. And so did Shannon Doka and the
Yeah.
people who were there before her. I mean, I've been there since the beginning, and the time will come here when that baton
Yeah.
is passed, right? And for you as well in Ontario. And that's a good thing. Going back to, seeing that new energy, the new people come in like Jonathan, and we're going to see more of that
Scott
on our board.
Woodrow. Yeah.
Smart young people. And I don't realize they're younger than me until I see a picture of all of us together and say, "Holy crap, who's that old guy?"
Yeah. Oh, we
What the
think
hell?
alike.
Yeah, apparently brothers from a different mother. And change is hard. Change is hard because we build these relationships and friendships over time, and then we see people go, and that's a hard thing. And I think part of it's because we see our own fate, right?
Yeah.
And we just lend ourselves to the cause for a while, and then we give it over to somebody else. But the fact is, the cause remains, and the cause.
Yeah, and it's bigger than us, right?
Yes.
And there's still a tremendous amount of work to do. There's a lot of stuff coming with AI, and we hear of all this innovation. And I'm really looking forward to, in Calgary, hopefully we'll get some more ability to, or more time to talk with some of these folks and some of these subject matter experts on this. I find the AI is really going to be helpful in the notification centers, I think, with quality management and quality assurance on your tickets and all that kind of stuff. That's kind of a no-brainer.
Yep.
And I do think there's some work to be done once we get the data in the field from an as-built perspective, right? So one of the big challenges we're going to face moving forward is that if we want to have that, take advantage of all that innovation and all that technology, the AI abilities, we need to get ourselves on some more common base mapping so we can actually put these maps together. And then we need some ways, what I was recently was at a conference and got an opportunity to talk to a bunch of folks about this whole idea of collecting, as we're doing locates, collecting data, collecting not just the coordinates, but the metadata that comes behind it, so we can actually use that data to do quality on the records. And if you get enough shots on one pipe over spatial over time, and enough different people doing it, that will be
we have
those are
better
golden.
data ultimately. You know what that tells me,
Yeah.
though? It sounds like we need some really smart people.
Some of the work that Ontario is doing and you're doing on training and certifications and all that good stuff is paramount to having that. We can't have the guy that's going to get the locator in his hand for 6 minutes and then he says, "Oh, there, go locate."
Yeah, run off to the next one.
We need to know that we've got a professional people out there collecting that data, doing the job the right way, having some sense of, I always hear this argument about frequency level, and when do what frequencies. It's not just in the old days, we used to use an 810 and light up the whole area and just go and locate what we could, and then we get to multi-frequency, and then now it's about choosing that frequency and knowing that resistance on the pipe and knowing what frequency should be. So it should be used to optimize that you're not on a phantom signal over or being drug over by another conductor in the ground. You're on the one you want.
Yep.
And then so these are all really great initiatives that you guys have going too, that I certainly want to make sure we continue to encourage. And my role in this is, as we move forward, as we've talked to a lot, is really about making sure that I'm aware of what's going on everywhere, and then try to bring everybody into it so that we can take the learnings that you guys are developing and the programs, and is there application for those elsewhere that we can encourage people to do and know about. So and replicate really.
Exactly. And this is where technology, AI, like you said, right? Yeah. It's going to play a huge factor going forward.
Go ahead.
Yeah, in Alberta Utility Safety Partners, we are going to embrace AI. We're cautious. Yeah. We're moving forward cautiously. We're developing AI policies to begin with, and then determining what areas of operations we want to seek influence from artificial intelligence to improve the process, not necessarily to replace people, because I think that's what first things people think.
No,
right?
I know
It's got to influence improved outcome, and all that takes a lot of policy work and deep think before you turn it on.
Well, I agree with you totally. Like I don't foresee the day when AI will replace locators, for instance.
No.
Right? That's not going to happen. But what it can do is, if we do have enough of you do have a set of as-built that we know and spatially are correct, and we're we got a high confidence level, at the end of the day, you could equip, this is a pie in the sky thing, you could equip an excavator with a sensor on its GPS sensor on its bucket. And if it knows there's something there, you have to
doesn't dig.
override it to make the,
Yeah.
it doesn't
Yeah.
dig.
That's right.
The trouble with, where AI, our records have to be so good. That's the trouble. And there's always something missing from the records. So that's a challenge. But I do think that, and there's a risk that we'll over depend on it, or over trust it, or overconfident with it. But no, I
But
do
trial
think
and
we're
error,
fighting-
right? I mean,
Yeah,
you don't have too many errors in the wrong spot.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the things I want to talk about as well was, one of the moments at the CCGA event was when Cyrano gave their presentation. There was obviously some comments and discussion thereafter, but really it came down to data, right? It came down to the data that they were provided to analyze. And based on the data, that was the analysis. That damages, societal cost of damage dropped, but not because it dropped, but more so because of the data.
I've been looking into this, and I actually just reached out to Cyrano this week.
Right.
We reached out to them in February and said, because we're waiting for the executive summary to close the file and move on. I have access to the new model, and I do think I'll come back to that in a second. But to give you, they say, okay, where I can tell you unequivocally, this is what I think. I'm still going to reserve that till I get this last document so I can. But what I can tell you is, we had a big drop from the number, and I think it's magnitudes smaller. The thing about that is that we also had a really big drop, as we said before, in our damage reporting. So, for instance, when the 2016 number or whatever was, when we initially, after they did the original work was in 2014, they did it for Quebec. And then we expanded that the next year to 14 and 15. Of course, in 15 is when they put the report out. So in 16, we expanded that out to conclude all of our data and with using the same model, which was okay. But the real and I think we found a lot of the data at the time, and I don't recollect this personally, but I think we found the data it was hard because we weren't collecting the right data to actually put it in the model that they built. Now, excuse me. So what I suspect, they had a number of 125 million for Quebec based on the 2014 data. And I think interpolation took that and off we went. We applied that across the country. Well, that number that we had for reported damages that year was a little over 12,000 damages. And then, so this year, when they redid this year for 2024, actually, we had 300. Or so.
Yeah.
So that's a 30% drop.
Which it sounds like we're doing great, but it's case.
I actually presented the DIRT report at the Canadian Gas Association conference, and I was like, I would like to take credit for this, but I have a feeling that it's we've had a reduction in reporting, but I can't put my finger on it. But I'm going to wait and see if that trend continues or if we're going to ramp up a bit. But regardless, I mean, we're seeing, regardless of all that, we are seeing a drop in damages year over year. I feel that the trend was there long term. And so now, what do they do to the model this year when they redid it? So they broadened the scope. So the old model we had was only based on 3 or 4 sets of data for regions because nobody else was collecting enough that was significant. So now they've expanded that across everybody's data. So they're using the whole data piece. And they've expanded the costing framework. So what goes into the direct cost of direct cost, but certainly they've added 4 new categories which avoid road construction or road accident costs, excavation costs, water supply or water interruption costs, and property damage from water breaks.
That's significant.
And then they've upgraded the congestion number, their emergency response number, emergency services costs, power, service interruption, internet interruption. They've done a bit more work to sort of update the methodology to make it a little bit more pertinent. Yep. And then, but the one thing that they really did that I think probably was the biggest culprit of moving it downward was they went through Statistics Canada and they developed based on a statistics census subdivision, and they broke Canada into 4,000 different little blocks.
Oh.
how that is how there's a factor that would be applied to the cost based on population density and all these other factors.
Which will drive that
Because
number
let's
down.
face it,
It
drive
dilutes
the
the
number
number,
down.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, for instance, you have it in my subdivision here. We hit a 2-inch gas main. It's a different response than it is in downtown Calgary.
Yes, that's right.
What they reported at the symposium, there was a lot of gas damages in Ontario that didn't have, from the Ontario numbers, that didn't have locations provided with them. So a big portion of those didn't get into that.
Oh, they didn't get to the data, right?
So subsequent to them, they went back and they put a sort of a level, a 3-level damage classification sort of scenario in. Minor being service line, and this could be a water service, could be any utility service. So minor would be considered a service line drop, a service line or a drop line, whatever, a service drop. Then they had moderate, which would be distribution line, and then the major would be transmission line. So if it was electric transmission or water transmission, there's a factor that they applied to that.
So really what it comes down to is this is a completely different set of analyses compared to the first report.
So what we're trying to, and what I'm trying to do now is take this, because my realization is that I'm looking at the model now to try to figure out exactly what we need to maximize the ability of this thing. And then I've got to change the dirt model to actually collect it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm glad that's the job you have and not me.
So really our improvement probably, I hate to say this, will probably be 2026 report because it takes that long, and because the dirt model is the way it is, we've already collected 25's data now, so it's going in the hopper now to crunch it out. So
well, I appreciate you looking into that. It was a big question mark, and there had to be a logical answer, and it's not an easy answer.
No,
it's not a straight.
I'm just waiting to get that last document from them. It's a 4 or 5 page summary, and it'll just give me some better feeling about it, so I can see exactly. I said she reached out to her in February. She had a couple of her graduate students and stuff that had graduated and all this kind of stuff. So she was waiting. She promised I'd get it here very shortly. That's why I reached out.
Well, she's know is nothing if they aren't thorough. And
absolutely professional.
They are,
And I have nothing but good to say about the integrity and what they're trying to provide us with. It's applying it we have to make sure we get the right inputs, basically. To help us out and get a real number, right?
So before we wrap up here, Todd, I mean, so you're coming to Calgary. We have an offsite coming up here in May in Ottawa. What's the one thing you're looking forward to the most in Calgary?
Oh, I'm really
besides seeing me and maybe we'll see.
It's the week following the Great Cup.
Yeah,
it's the 17th and 19th, I believe, if I remember correctly.
I know a guy who might get some tickets, so let me know.
Oh, we'll say, but
nothing like starting a conference hungover. That's not a good thing.
No, I'm really looking forward to getting the gang together. Again, and starting to have these discussions around promoting, and it may be where we start to talk about. Let's start to kick off the dirt reporting and try to figure out how we can drive that forward as a collective.
Yeah, very much.
I think that's a good opportunity for there. I think there is going to be, we are looking at some, again, we'll start to talk about the call for papers, but I do really want to sort of focus a little bit on AI and trying to figure out what that potential is. And figure out how to harness that a little bit. And I'm really looking forward to we were really engaging in Saskatchewan 2 years ago, and I'm really looking forward to Calgary and basically Alberta, coming together. And it's such a I always have a great time when I go out there. So I'm just gonna
good.
It'd be fun, man.
Yeah, it will be.
Getting our board together in the committees and all that good stuff is.
I'm anxious again. For me, I mean, I love having everybody come out. This is great, and showcase our home. But I'm anxious to see that continued. I'm really anxious to see that continue. So, anyway, Todd, thanks for doing this with me again. Thanks for being on the podcast. There's lots to talk about CCGA-wise, and I'm glad we have you at the helm.
I'm really happy to be here, and I'm energized by it. It's been a really good way for me to stay in the business and keep moving forward. I'm excited to be here and looking forward to it all.
You're the right guy. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate
it, Mike. We'll talk to you soon.